Should be working. Question. Hey, looks like it's working. Nice. Glasses off. Don't need them if it's working. I'm gonna stall for a minute to double check. There it goes. Okay, definitely working. Let me get chat up on my phone. Nice. Hi. Hi. Okay, for the record, if chat is not showing up for you right now, refresh the page. If you've been waiting here for a little bit before that, I accidentally clicked the don't allow chat thing, which doesn't make sense. Of course I want chat. Also note that I have a Streamlabs link under in the description, and you'll help me greatly if you donate anything to the stream. And it will definitely make sure that you get your question read, if you know what I'm saying, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. And then of course there's super chat as well that'll help too. So this is basically an introductory course, I guess, just like an introductory stream to my world, the world that I created for me and my players to hang out in D&D. And I guess I'm gonna tell you all about it, and you can give me questions, and I'll take them. Thank you for the nice you have a nice forehead, Nathan. I take pride in my forehead. It's a good ass forehead. So yeah, where to begin? The name of the world is Kadoor. So when they started, I guess let's talk about the players first, just in case you haven't caught all of them. I have their minis right here. You should be able to see them pretty well. Oh God, unless I drop them and break them. No, it's fine. This right here, if that wants to, we'll just put them right behind my forehead. This is Hugo's. His name is the Professor. This is pretty close to what the character actually looks like. He is a human bard, and he is hilarious all the time. And kind of his thing is he is a... Yeah, I can give it away because my players all know most of this stuff. So I don't want to give anyone's secret away, just in case any of my players watch. He is a time traveler. If you can guess the inspiration for the word, the name Professor, you win. And also, he kind of goes around. He has like a no-kill policy. He's very inventive. He doesn't usually use weapons. He's more of a support than anything else. Really fun to play with Hugo there. Then moving on to my girlfriend Sarah. Her character is Alenia, is a cleric. This is her mini of Lathander. She actually doesn't carry around a lantern, but this is the mini she had. Sarah actually does kit bashes and stuff, so some of this is actually custom made, but she didn't feel like cutting the lantern off. But for instance, this shield is actually was not part of the model. She hand painted this. She actually did all of these. And then there's actually behind this hair, there's a hole bored in it, and there's a magnet in there. She is an ASMR, which is part angel. So we have magnetic wings that we can clip on when she uses her angel wing powers. It's very fucking cool. She also made a mini for her spiritual weapon, which is like a little golden mace that floats around. Very neat. Then we have our Aarakocran Ranger. And Aarakocra is a bird person. Usually has a bow, but this mini came with a sword, and we decided that we didn't want to change it too much because on the back he already has a bow and arrow. I don't know if you can tell, really. He's a snow owl. So this is pretty much what he looks like in reality. I say reality, in the way that he is described by my player Alex. Very cool. Some DMs wouldn't allow stuff like this because he has flight level 1, and it's 50 feet of movement, which can seem like a lot. You can adjust that. But I just gave it to him. I figured it'd be fun. I mean, why not? And then we have Hugo's girlfriend's character, Zudre, who is a drow, which is a dark elf rogue assassin. So she's right here. I can't really... That's pretty close to... This camera doesn't like to auto-zoom on shit. But yeah, so she's very sneaky, and she goes around and she shoots the fuck out of people, and she destroys people. There will actually be full artwork of all of these characters coming from my girlfriend, who is an artist who draws character art for a lot of people. She has commissions and stuff, but she's doing our own stuff for our campaign, because that's really cool. So I'll show that to you guys when that's all done. So the world they are in is Kadoor, and it's a world that when they started had experienced several centuries of peace, because a lot of people start out in, I don't know, there's always shit going on right away, and they're always like in this crazy sort of I don't know, medieval chaos thing, where just everything is fucking terrible and stressful, and there's violence all the time. I actually wanted to start them out in a relatively peaceful time. I thought it would be interesting. And they didn't meet in a tavern, which you can do, but I didn't have that. They actually met. Let me read the introduction for you. I brought that here. So let me read the introduction to how they got introduced to the actual world themselves, because I thought it was like a fun way to slowly reveal to them what they had going on. And I keep all that paperwork, by the way, in my big blue folder, which is my DMing folder. I got a bunch of papers in here and shit. Oh god, it's all over the place. Okay, cool. So let me take a question real quick. Let me see if you got any questions real quick. What are the economics of Kadoor? Well, we'll talk about that. Try holding your hand behind the mini, maybe. I think I turned it off. You look tired, Mr. Jake. Am I tired? Might be the lighting, and also the white balance. I'm feeling fine. Because I don't have soft lighting right here. I have just harsh lighting because I just stuck them to the wall. I actually have this professional lighting for when we film on the couch, but I'm not on the couch. So I'm not using the professional lighting because it has to be like side lit. There's not space back here, so whatever. It's just that. Let me see what else we got. Are the questions D&D specific or anything? Well, we are talking about D&D, but who knows? You could get it. But consider the fact that I may skip things. There was a question earlier about the map that is the thumbnail for this video. That is actually the western part of the world, and it is to scale. If you were able to zoom in, there's actually hexes, and each one of those hexes is 21 miles. Yeah, I did the math because I'm a fucking nerd. So anyway, let me introduce you how they got introduced. By the way, this is my DM map. I'm not going to show you a ton because I don't want them to see a ton of it. They have a version of this that I, as a prop, I soaked it in tea and I burnt the edges and I wrote on it by hand with a nice pen to kind of mark places, and then I gave that to them and they can do that. But on the back, I have information for every city that is marked on here. So I didn't want to give too much information. That's why I'm not going to let you look at it very much. So I just kind of walked them into the city with about 2.5 pages of dialogue that I would give to them. And then I also have a thing about the gods. So to make sure that I always have this information, because I think it's important for the DM to stay consistent. While it is fun, you can make shit up as you go. Once you make that thing up, it should be, that's canon now. And it's hard to keep a lot of that shit in your head, so sometimes a player might go, oh, wait, I thought he was this. And you go, oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you're right. Which is fine. You're not going to be perfect every time. But this is how they got introduced to Kadoor. And it's important that you start this off with a very severe, the stereotypical DM voice, which is not a thing I usually do. I don't go like, you arise in the morning to the soaking dew and skeletons all around you, decay dripping off of their butt. Well, that sounds, it sounds cool and literary. I don't talk like that in reality. So I don't usually do it. This episode brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Drink Diet Dr. Pepper. I did start this out in sort of a DM voice, and you'll get it after a little bit. So, Kadoor. Also, I'm going to mention the many races. Actually, fuck it. You'll learn about it. We're good. Before the many races, there were many worlds with many gods. The night skies were filled with the distant twinkling of a million worlds, and the moons, Alga and Gila, danced in front of them, just as their namesake. But that ended. Alga and Gila are gods. Some say the gods of the million worlds warred, blackening the sky, while others believe the people of those worlds doomed themselves, leaving only our world, the dancing moons, and the 8 remaining stars held in the sky by the gods that haven't left us. The many races inhabit the diverse lands of Kadoor to varying degrees of prosperity or conflict. While wars come and go, now is a relatively peaceful era. The many races formed the lasting council 799 years ago, and it has maintained relative peace for the duration. Located in the capital city, Gygax, the lasting council gathers for a variety of reasons, but none more notably than the Bountiful Day, which is very special this year, as it will mark the 800th year of peace and prosperity since the council's inception. The Bountiful Day is a holiday. It's like Thanksgiving and Christmas mixed. To mark this occasion, each race has tasked their greatest artists to erect statues of their most influential council persons, and are to be placed atop each race's column outside the council chambers. The unveiling will take place next month, the month of Isul. Curly Q gave me $5 to buy some real Dr. Pepper. I will absolutely buy fake Dr. Pepper. Thank you, Curly Q. Yeah, you're great. Weird, the pop-up showed up later than it did in the chat, but that's still cool. Thank you very much. You're the best. Gygax is home to close to 2 million people, with each race represented by a robust cultural center designed by some of the greatest architects from each of those cultures. While it is one city in spirit, it's just equally 12 smaller cities, each blending seamlessly into each other. You'll notice the high walls surrounding the city. These are holdovers from before the lasting council, but are maintained by each race's district, and as such are very distinct from one another, especially from within the city. At this point, I would have given them at least a peek at what the city looks like. So this is a zoomed in view. This is 1 hex for the record, and then this would be the city. Can you see that? You can get the gist though. Wow, those lights are... There we go. It is a big circle, and each wedge of this circle is a different race. And in the center is the council chambers. Outside of that is a garden area, and outside of that are kind of where the council people and the political district work. So inside is the capital of the city, technically, because the city is several miles wide. Each one of these squares is half a mile, technically. So it's a big-ass city. And they start over here in the human wedge, we call it in-game. So... Continuing. While immense in size, both the walls and the lasting council chambers will be visible to you at all times, at least in part, so getting lost is quite unlikely. But do be careful where you tread, because even though the lasting council has brokered peace for centuries, crime still exists, and a coin purse is no safer within the walls than outside them if left unattended. The whole thing is also a bowl. It's shaped like a bowl, so if you're on the outside, you're actually much higher, and you can see down into the center of the city. Please feel free to visit the many shops in the visitor center during processing, which can take a bit. Be sure to pick up a complimentary map at the service kiosk near the gate. With that, I welcome you to the great city of Gygax, home of the many races and their lasting council, but most importantly, home to Bob's Tours, your only source for the 1 copper Dire Elephant Gygax tour in the Bay Area. Oh, and don't forget your exclusive Bob's Tours official tunic on sale for the low, low price of 1 gold or 3 for 2. Tell your friends and be sure to give us 5 stars on the survey. And that was how they got introduced to the world themselves. It turned out they were taking a tour. Woo! It's the twist. They're not segregated, actually. The cities are not segregated. It's just kind of like let's call it New York, the boroughs. I kind of took that to the extreme, where like in Queens or Brooklyn, like Brooklyn might have more black people than Queens, but Jamaica Queens exists, and also like there's places where the Hasidic Jews are. That's the Jew neighborhood. This is the Mexican neighborhood, or the Puerto Rican neighborhood. Like it is like that. It's neighborhoods, but it's still not segregated. You know what I'm saying? So I just took that to the extreme. So while this may be the human wedge, there will be humans over here in like the gnome territory as well. Just fewer, because this is where the humans and sort of like their culture exists. So yeah, and by the way, radiating out mostly directly from the center of this is kind of where each race comes from. So, for instance, the Aarakocrans up here at the north, they are pretty much due north, and the Dragonborn down here, and the south, they live south. They also live over this way too. So it's a rough estimation of where they actually came from, and they all came to the center and kind of meshed into one city. And that was kind of the deal. I don't know what APL fish look like. I look like your body pillow. Okay, there's nothing of substance in your chat, friends. So on their first sort of day, I put them in a situation where they could explore for a while. I wanted them to get used to role-playing. They walk in, and they have to be in a visitor's center for the city while they are processed to be allowed into the rest of the city. I did this for 2 reasons. Swamp Ape donated $5. Seems like time travel is a prominent theme in your game. A ballsy move for a campaign, especially so early on. Time travel, you'll see. I'll explain the time travel. It is a ballsy move, I think, if you leave it unchecked. You're just like, yeah, time travel's a thing you guys can go do. Gonna be a little more reined in than that, at least in my head. Eventually it could get out of hand, I suppose, but by that point they'll be so focused on goals that it'd be there's certain things you can and can't do. There's rules. It's like Doctor Who or like Terminator. There's always rules, so we're gonna have our own rules for time travel if and when we get to that point where it's capable to do, and they won't be able to just zoop in and out of time whenever the fuck they want. It'll be pretty, not rigid, but there'll be more like options, like settings. So you'll see. So they walked into the visitor center, and again, this was a 2-pronged thing. Sorry I have to get so close, by the way, to the thing when I read the donations. That is kind of small. Actually, let me make it a little bit bigger. Boop. And that way I can see it a little bit easier. So that'll be bigger next time if you do it. Thank you so much, by the way, for the donation. Really helps me out. Love you. The 2 reasons were, the first reason is I wanted to let them do whatever they wanted, but in a small space. And the second reason is I wanted to make sure that kind of they could get a taste for the game, because 3 of them were basically brand new. And my girlfriend's the only one that really had real experience in tabletop RPGs. And I wanted to make sure that they felt free, but in a confined space, so that they didn't go crazy. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people that say that here, you can do whatever you want, and they just do literally whatever they want. But I set up a scenario where they could do whatever they want within, like, boundaries. And so that was a good time. And I had lots to do in there. They met if you've watched my other stuff, they met Sig, the shopkeeper. You guys want to buy something cool? So that was fun. I don't know why I always do the finger. It just kind of gets me in the voice, I guess. And also, they dealt with kind of the culture. Sort of. None of them had, besides, I guess, the professor, but most of them come from cultures where it's homogenous as far as, like, the kinds of things you experience. Like, Evelios here. He comes from basically just Aarakocra. That's basically it. There's different kinds of birds, but they're all bird people mostly. Elenia comes from a very small town, which they just visited in the last session, which we'll talk about, which has many races, but not not like this. Zudre lived in the woods, so it's pretty alone for the most part. And then the professor comes from a mixed race place that he hasn't talked about yet, so I'm not going to talk about it. But it's just not as much, because there's like one of the first people they see that's not human is a dragonborn, which is it's a dragon humanoid. It sounds like what it is. And it was using its fire breath to cook a goat and kind of salt bay, carve it up and give it to people as like a food stand. They also met a little old lady that sold books at a bookstore that was kind of into bodice rippers, so like she was into sex novels. They met a bartender who hated her job, who was based on a person I worked with in real life. They met a few people, but their encounter for the session, because I wanted to make sure they got to role play, they got to explore, they got to kind of steep in the world for a little bit, and then I wanted them to have a combat, or at least an opportunity for a combat. And that was more of an opportunity of a combat than an actual combat, because what happened is there were some, let's just face it, there were racists, some cultists I set up. Most people just in general hate racists, I think. I think racists are universally, you look down upon them unless you too are a racist, usually. Same with pedophiles. So it's really easy to get players to kind of do what you want, or at least respond how you want. Maybe they won't do exactly what you want. If you do archetypes. So it was a cultist, and he was using religious fervor. All my players are non-religious, really. He was using religious fervor to justify his racism and trying to say that humans are the only race worthy of like a civilization like this, and all the other ones are dirty and should get out. And of course, 3 of my players aren't actually fully human. So, yeah, they didn't take kindly to that. So Zudre is easily the most evil of the group. But more just doesn't, I wouldn't say she's evil. It's more she doesn't deal with problems the same way everyone else does. So she took a shot at one of the cultists, and immediately, like the first shot she took in D&D, she killed someone. She shot an arrow right through their skull, and he fell down. And they were all like, "Oh my God, Peter!" And he fell over and died. And so they start crying, and so they all get into a combat. 2 of the players, Elenia and Professor, are trying to talk the other 2 players out of killing the cultists, and then the leader of the cultists comes, and I put his charisma difficulty class. Again, that is a roll you would have to exceed with a d20 plus your modifiers in order to persuade a person. I put it at 25, and they couldn't persuade him like at any point. None of their modifiers went high enough. They probably could now since they're level 4. But at level 1, they just couldn't persuade this guy. It still would be a hard roll right now. But so he just kept fighting, and he fought to the death. And so they all got to experience combat, and it was a lot of fun. And a little tip for DMs, players don't like to miss. So if you have something that has a really high AC, it's not as fun as having something with just a shit ton of hit points that they can constantly hit. Hitting feels good, even if you triple their hit points instead of, make it a AC 15 instead of an 18. It means they have a 15% more likely chance to hit, but you just have more hit points. So yeah, you can kind of do that. So they hit a lot typically, unless they're having a bad day. Because I try to make sure that something they're fighting is within range of their typical dice rolls, which, at a certain point in DMing, you kind of get used to it. Anyway, so they immediately, because they killed 2 people, although it wasn't self-defense, which is important, they had to get locked up in jail for the night. And one of the characters, Elenia, the cleric, She was the only one that came with an NPC, and kind of the point of that NPC, his name is Alexander. He was there as sort of so I could have a voice towards the players directly for their first few sessions. And also, it's a character. Her character, specifically Sarah's character, Elenia, is a character she had played briefly before and wanted to play again. And one of her things was Alexander, one of her people in that. So I was like, okay, just bring all of that over, and I'll just transplant it into my world and make it work. Which brings us to the gods. For a brief second, after that, we'll explain what happened. So her god is Lathander. You might be familiar with that from Forgotten Realms. I almost always say Dragonlance, but it's Forgotten Realms. And the sun god of rebirth and shit like that, so she's a cleric of that. It's one of the only gods that people commonly are religious about, in the way that you commonly think, like Catholic style religious. Let me see some. There's a conversation happening. Legend of Phoenix, by the way, is Elenia. So and she is in the chat right now. What is this cult? What did this cult worship? That's a good question. The players didn't actually discover that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But the cult did not worship Lathander, that's for sure. Then there's Ortis, the god of death, which is more the god of mortality than the god of death. If that makes sense, and is kind of viewed among the populace as sort of a person who takes more like the Reaper, but like not an ominous Reaper, like good people also would technically meet this god if they were to die, and he kind of taxis them between the corporeal and ethereal planes of life and death. Then there's the Wanderer, which is a god that takes on many forms, walks around the whole world. At times maybe as a beggar or as a noble person or as a child or within a group of people, and depending on how you treat that person or the people around them, the god may punish or help you or just do nothing. So you could run into the Wanderer at any point and maybe not even know. Then there's the god of time, also known as the Watchmaker, Toll, which is I don't know. That's fun. I like the idea of having a god of time. Of course, one of our characters being a former time traveler is fun. But as you will see in a little bit, that time is important. Then we have Isolfa, which is the other main god that people really pray to, and is actually the god responsible for that bountiful day that I brought up before, which is kind of like Thanksgiving and Christmas mixed into one. People give gifts representing the bounty that they personally received over the last year. So if that person received friendship, for instance, like our players did, they exchanged gifts kind of showing that friendship had blossomed. Sarah actually made real-life friendship bracelets that all of them seemed to wear. So it was very cool. Then there's the god of suffering. His name is Zix. And less the god that causes suffering, more the god who suffers. Has a direct correlation of suffering between things that, like, if there's more suffering, he experiences less, and if there's less suffering, he experiences more. And then there's Alga and Gila. These two gods are often depicted as, like, dancing together celestially forever and ever. And when they dance together, they cause, like, major weather, I guess. So, like, tornadoes and hurricanes and tidal waves and stuff, and earthquakes are kind of given... Alga and Gila are given fault for those things, basically. But they also... the moons, there's two moons in the sky, and they kind of have a similar thing. They're named after the gods, Alga and Gila, but they don't actually cause the moons. It's just sort of a colloquial thing that happened. And also, there are only 8 stars in the sky at night, and that's important. Each star represents one of the gods, and but that's it. Let's see. Dark Beast says, a DM did mess with me before with killing, though. The party was prepping a long rest down the road. We heard people talking about killing once we slept. Slaughter them. Actors running lines. Oops, that's funny. That is definitely funny. Silly. I like DMs that fuck with you players, because I'm one of them. I think all DMs are, really. It's important. What happened next? So they're in jail because they killed those 2 cultists. 3 of them, or was it 3 or 4? 3 or 4, I think 3 of the cultists survived, actually. And didn't fight. They didn't want to be part of that shit because they, the cleric, Elenia, and the bard, the professor, both talked them out of it, but again, couldn't talk the main guy out of it. So they go, Alexander bails them out, but basically they're on a work release program, and they're given these little wristband things that are made of like silver, and there's blue runes on them. It does a couple things. It keeps track of them for the time being, and it also lets them communicate with each other. This also had 2 reasons. The first one was so that they knew that they were kind of... I didn't want to give them full freedom yet without stripping freedom, right? So, specifically, Hugo's girlfriend who plays Zudre, she wants to, like, go crazy sometimes, and so I wanted to rein that in a little bit before, like, while she was getting a feel for the game and how that sort of, like, the dynamic works. Because I get a strong sense that if she was playing as her character may act, she would buck very hard against anything anyone else was doing. And while that would be probably true to her character in a vacuum, it's not fun to play as. And I didn't want to give her really, not the option, but not. I wanted her to realize that not doing that was more beneficial on her own, and she does a great job with that now. So now she's kind of all in on the teamwork thing. But she was and I figured she might do this because she's the only one that chose an evil alignment. I think she's chaotic evil, and I didn't want her to think she was forced to always do just absolutely evil things. You can do good things while doing evil, like killing the fuck out of all the enemies instead of trying to talk them out of it. I consider, because it's chaotic evil, you can work towards a plan which benefits your friends, right? But you don't always have to be plotting against everybody. But you can still kill the shit out of people. I think that's fine. So, and the other thing is, I don't have to deal with table talk issues if they just say, I talk into the wrist thing and tell them this. Because they always have ideas about stuff, and you're never going to be able to stop it, really. I can deactivate them from time to time to add spice to a situation, which I think is fun. But, like, I can just say, magic, dispel here, and it just doesn't work. And, I mean, that's not a cop-out. It actually would be the case. But other than that, it's just a way, like, to kind of combat real-world issues like table talk, where maybe one character figures out a puzzle that another character is experiencing in another room. You could just be like, okay, you can just talk, it's fine. Because, I don't know, it's hard to pretend as a character not to have the information you have, right? And it seems counterintuitive. So let them talk, fuck it. So their first mission was to go on behalf of the city of Gygax, which was session number 2. They went to a small town of Dyson, which is actually on this map. It was not far away. It's actually within the first hex. So it's down here in this area. So it was a short walk. They didn't have to spend the night outside or anything. I didn't want them to have to go through the wilderness yet. Even though level 1 wilderness walks are super fun, it wouldn't make any sense for someone who cares about one of the characters to send them on a long-ass trek in very dangerous territory, right? It doesn't make any sense. They were also sent with an escort, a warforged named... he had a serial number, and the serial number's in that book, but it doesn't matter. But they nicknamed him Blue because he is a Warforged is like a construct. So think robot, but magic. And he had like silver metal skin, armor, and stuff. And then he had blue magic sort of veins running through his body. And he had a big ass sword. And he didn't do a ton because they didn't need his help a lot. And if he were to help, he would siphon XP. So unless they got into some shit, I could save them with Blue. But it also was the situation where all 4 of them together couldn't probably kill him. And he can control the wristbands. So one of the other things it does is when he presses a button, all the wrists fly together, and they're stuck to each other, which I think is fun because they're technically prisoners, right? So again, it was a way to let them kind of go without giving them. It was training wheels is what it was, and I kept talking about training wheels actually out of game. It was like, okay, we're gonna do a few sessions, and then your training wheels come right the fuck off. And I could tell you they really, really came off. But I needed, first time players. I don't think it's wise to just say, okay, here's the world, go play, because they get consumer fatigue. A situation where, you walk into a store and you want a pair of shoes, and the pair of shoes you find has 500 different variations, and you may say like, I like red, but you look at the red shoes in that variant. And there's still like 100 types of that shoe in red, and you went in there fully wanting to get shoes, and you end up walking out without any shoes because you were just too overwhelmed by the amount of choices. And that can kind of happen until someone settles into a world. They're suspending disbelief now, but it's not like it's not real yet until you play in it a little bit. Right now, I think we all look forward to Sundays as we get to go visit Kadoor for a while, right? And that's kind of where I like to be. So they go to Dyson, and the job is there's a beet farmer named Ben. He has goats and beets, and there's something stealing and killing his goats. So they track it down. It ends up being giant spiders, wolf spiders. He drew a picture that one of them kept, and it looked like a big spider. But I drew it like all crappy because Ben is kind of a dork and stupid. And it was really funny. I gave them a little prop for that. By the way, as a DM, give props whenever you have an idea for something that's easy to make for yourself, like a piece of paper with drawings on them, or maps that you can print out, or just like Alenia gets visions and dreams from her god, or I guess kind of it's more like clairvoyance a little bit. And I could print those out and say, like, this is the kind of image that you saw in your dream, and sort of explain it to her. And she can kind of cue in on that and get sort of feelings about stuff. And it's just interesting. It gives more depth to the characters. It makes the world tangible, and you can touch it. So anyway, they easily track down where this place is. They find a small cabin and a little outhouse. I forgot to mention the professor investigates every bathroom for some reason. There's always something about bathrooms that he finds interesting. And so as a joke, and then now as a character trait, he investigates the bathroom, he goes to the outhouse, and he investigates, and he dips his head actually down into the hole where you shit, and he didn't go very far, which is important later, but it was just shit down there, and it was funny. It was old shit. It was kind of an old abandoned cabin. So they go into the cabin, they investigate a little bit. Down in the back, there's a broken like pantry basement area, and there's a bunch of caves. There's some spiders in there. They end up getting some fights with some spiders, which is fun. Turns out that owls are natural predators to spiders, so they actually got a little bit of a bonus on some of the charisma stuff. And sort of the behavior of the spiders got altered because of Evelios. Which was fun, because I hadn't thought of it until they walked in. Like, duh, they're spiders, and he's an owl. Of course, they'd be scared. So they killed, kind of alien-style, all the eggs. They took out all the spiders. But it was weird for spiders to act that way. They did some nature rolls, and spiders like that don't usually go out of their nest area. Like, it was like a mile, and go kill things. Turns out there was an ettercap down there. An ettercap, I showed it the other day on stream. It's basically it's a human spider thing. It's purple. It kind of looks like Grimace from the McDonald's character, but he's also a spider, and he uses web to garrote people and choke them out and kill them. So they had a little fight with that, which I think was technically too high level for them, but he was pretty easy actually. I didn't have to fudge any rolls or make it weaker, because I figured if they got into the shit really, I could just have Blue go down there and save them if they absolutely needed help. But I was gonna let them get fucked up if they had trouble, but they didn't. So they dealt it with that. So they keep following. After they kill the Etten, they actually take a gland off the Etten, and later on they go to Sig, who is an inventor as well, and they get little web shooters. They still have 2 charges of that web shooter, so they can shoot a web, and if they hit... Actually, I think the creature makes a save. It's actually webbed like Spider-Man, which I think is cool. To give him little cool shit like that, you know, it doesn't always have to be magic. I thought inventions were a fun way to do that. So they keep walking, and then Zudre, our intrepid drow rogue, she continues down the cavern, and she doesn't want to look out or be careful or anything. So she curls around, and she actually falls into the big ocean, or it's a tiny lake, I guess, of shit that the outhouse was built over top of. Or I guess that probably was just a catacomb, and then it got filled with shit. So she fell in that, and then they all climbed out back the way they came, but one of them was covered in shit. Or was it the professor? No, he was covered in shit another time. And so yeah, that was their first real mission. They ended up going back the next day, and they got some stuff for that. It was fun. They got to hang out. What the hell happened the day after that? Let me look at my campaign log. Oh yeah. Also, I gave Zudre, when she killed the cultist, he had like a squiggly little dagger, and she got that, and it's called White Power, and the only thing it does, it's just a regular dagger, but every time you kill a non-human with it, it lights up. And so I thought that was funny. So I'll take some questions real quick before we go to day 2. Jake, does Jake allow death in his campaign? Oh, absolutely. They can totally die. Yes, I just didn't want them to, die right away. I don't think that's fun. I don't think party wipes are fun. I don't think character death is fun. It's just interesting and an experience that is available to them if they fuck up. My philosophy to DMing is I'm not going to kill the characters on purpose, but I'm going to let them die if they fuck up. Like, they can make mistakes, and it's their fault. So, I wish I could play with you guys. You seem like a good teacher. I try to be. I'm sure I fuck up here and there, because my brain is scattered. As you can tell, I kind of talk all over the place a lot. I try to stay focused on things, but it's not always effective. So I'm sure I am not the best. And yeah, death is absolutely part of the game. Like, it's a thing that you should realize, and your players should realize very early on. Death is a thing that happens if you mess up. What are you listening to, Jay? I'm just listening to my own self in this, because I get feedback through this mic, and I can hear my own voice, and it helps me talk. Not all DMs allow death. What? That's strange. If a DM doesn't allow character death, they should die. Let's talk about my philosophy on character death. I don't think you should try to kill your players. I don't think that's fun for anybody. It feels like you're out to get them. Like, maybe you had beef with a player, and you're like, yeah, fucking a rock falls on you and you die. Fuck you. I don't like that. I think fights at a certain point, you don't have to balance fights, because the players should know they can run away. But they could choose not to. Like, and maybe, like, if someone falls down a cavern, and they just tumble down, and they try to jump over something instead of taking the easy way, or instead of taking the careful way, they try to do the easy thing and jump over, and they roll a nat 1. They're falling down the fucking chasm, right? Now, I'm the type of DM that might give them a shot to, like, try to grab onto something, but it'll still hurt a lot, and it's a critical fail. I mean, you don't... The DC's tough, so... I mean, they have 2 flying characters and 1 with Featherfall, so really the only one that could die is the one I think would probably do that first, is Zudre, because she's so brazen. I think... I don't know. You should always allow death. I don't know. Plot armor is stupid. There's no plans you have that can't be changed. That's a good DM quote. There's no plans you have that can't be changed. It's a good life quote. Yeah, and if you're invincible, that's just not fun. You sound better than most of my GMs. Who are those guys? I don't know what those guys are. Someone's talking about if you have to re-roll. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I think if you have to re-roll right away, that's bullshit because you put a lot of effort into your character. But if your character dies, it dies. And I do have mechanics in mind to bring that character back if they would like to try. Of course, you would need at least a physical piece of the character most times. You could probably do some things for gods, I guess, and try to make it work. But yeah, I mean, if your body gets disintegrated, that might kind of be it. So yeah, but we have a cleric, and she'll know like revivify, and she knows already, of course, stabilize or whatever that is, spare the dying. So yeah, I mean, you'll have opportunities not to die more than you will to die, but it should always be on the table. All players should always know that it's possible. And as a player, you might like think about another character you might want to play. It can also be something that you just multi-class into later, of course, which is fine. But I don't know. I think having a backup plan is always a good idea. I mean, as a DM, I have to all the time. I mean, you should too. Well, let's look at some more questions. You almost killed a bard with a literal ball of fart. I assume you did Stinking Cloud at level 1. That seems like much. In junior college, DM I had used a spectral squishy thumb that threatened to mash players who didn't go the direction he wanted. I fought it once. A spectral... Like, all the time he used a thumb to force you guys into the... Okay. Alright, well. That's interesting. I don't like railroading. I like... If I want to railroad a character, the players, how I do it is they are allowed to get on a train that can take several different railroads and deviations, but the destination, the point B, actually more like the point F, is the same, I guess, right? But right now they're off doing their own thing, so let's see what ends up happening. Day 2, they get or not day 2, session 2. Oh, this was fun. This was a thing I kind of found a module. And it was a good idea, but the fucking execution was garbage. I took some of the names and stuff, so it's Rugo's Potion Shop. But I changed a lot of it because it was... I liked the idea. And just whoever wrote it just doesn't... I don't think they understand how D&D really works. Because that would have... It would kill most parties at the level that it was suggested. So I just changed a lot of it and used kind of the concept. So they go, they find out that there's a potion shop maker, or a potion maker that owns a shop, that is poisoning potions that are supposed to be like health potions for sick children, and there's children dying, like at the orphanage. And later on, it turned out there was a plot. Like the orphanage was working with the guy so she could get like, I don't know if it was insurance money or something. She didn't want the kids. They didn't really investigate further, so it probably would have been, not having to take care of so many kids, but still getting paid. So they go to Rugo's potion shop, and they kind of had to case the joint, and they meet the guy, and they look out for stuff, and they got most of the intel that they were sent to get the first time around. Then they got some interesting stuff. This is when I gave them the bag of holding, because a lot of people would say like the bag of holding is kind of a cheat code so that they could just have a bunch of shit. But I just look at it like item management in a video game isn't that much fun, and it's certainly not fun on a pen and paper game. So fuck it. Here's your bag of holding. Just do your best, right? So, I mean, plus it actually made it really fun. So they go in, and there's a guard outside. His name is Carl. He's still a guard for the new owner of that shop, and they like him a lot. They ended up they befriended him instead of trying to fight him, which I thought was interesting and fun. And they bought he had kind of crummy clothes, but a really nice sword. So they ended up buying him clothes as a present and getting him drunk, but they forgot to give him the clothes first. So they left the clothes with him. Left a note on his chest. We're like, hey, sorry, here's some clothes. You were fun. And so he passed out in like the alley, and he really liked that. And so they go in past the guard. They take care of the guard with basically charisma checks, and they walk in, and there's a golem sitting there. It's kind of like a statue, but when an intruder comes in, it turns into a golem. It was an iron golem, which is a very tough fight for level 2 characters at this point. However, they used a scroll that they got from Delric, who is the person that gave them the job in the first place. Basically, I gave them rewards for getting intel. Like, if they got intel, Delric can probably give you something to help. Basically, that was the point. I gave it instead of a iron golem, it was turn iron to flesh scroll. And so it turned into a flesh golem, and they fucked it up and killed it. So after that, they look through and they find keys, and there's some stuff, and they go downstairs after searching for a secret door that's in an office. And earlier in the day, when they had cased the place, they found this nice young little halfling girl, apprentice, I guess. And her name was Katie, and she's very nice. But Rugo was an asshole, an ugly asshole that hit on the drow, and like just a genuinely bad guy. Try to make him as just detestable as possible. And Katie was super nice to them, though, and actually gave them some information they needed. And so they go downstairs. They immediately start hearing Katie screaming. And so they go down the stairs a little bit more, but then they also hear a dog growling, but much closer than they hear Katie screaming. And it turns out there's a hellhound, which, again, is a little bit higher than their level. But they had stuff to deal with that, which if they did, a good job with searching the place and stuff, I rewarded their intel, basically is what the point was. So they beat up on the hellhound for a little bit, even though it used like flame breath or something. I think it was flame breath, and it almost killed 2 of them pretty quickly. But they ended up I think it was Hugo, so the professor put it to sleep, and then I had them they wanted to put it in the bag of holding to suffocate it, and they had to do a series of rolls to like pick it up and put it in the thing without it waking up, even though technically it's only when the thing takes damage it wakes up. I think, although maybe it says jostling too in the sleep spell, because it's a low-level spell, so it might say that. But so I just was like, okay, so make some dex rolls and see if you can hold it. And I gave them 2 shots at it because I thought it was fun. That's a rule of cool instead of just the base rules. and then they put it in the bag of holding, and it fucking is asphyxiated to death. It's hilarious. So now they have this dead hellhound, and they go search around, and they get to a part near the end, and there's a door. They open the door, and they see Katie strapped to this sort of thing where the giant syringe basically hanging over top of her that will drain her blood or whatever for some sort of experiment Rugo is doing. He's downstairs doing that thing, and he's got a lever next to him. And the lever starts making the chain. It's like an apparatus, it's got a structure, and then in the middle of it is the thing, and it goes straight down. So you would be looking straight up at it from this perspective, and it's hung by chains, and so it would start to lower. So it added an element to combat that it had its own initiative, basically, and so it added like, it's not just a combat, it's also you got to save this person, and we know where the lever is, and so it was a really good fight. And he was more of a, I didn't actually have the stats for it up front, so I just made my own stat block. Rugo, he was more of an alchemist, so he had potions that he would throw, and he threw a fire one, and it almost killed Hugo's character. He actually went unconscious. He was the first one to go unconscious, but he immediately was brought back, so it was fine. And they end up killing Rugo and saving Katie after a series of really fun stuff. And they go back and they get their rewards and stuff, and it was really, really cool. They got to keep some interesting potions, some of which they still have, I believe. And they got to keep the bag of holding and any of the other things they didn't use. So that was a really cool fight. So what else? What else we got? It wakes if jostled. Yeah. I gave that must be Hugo. I gave you guys some rolls for that though, instead of just doing it because it was a fun idea. Deeply sexual it was. Okay, time for some questions before we get into the next thing. Obviously, of course, if you have any Streamlabs donations you want to make, I'll make sure I definitely get to your thing. And if not, the super chat is available as well, and you don't have to, but I'll do my best. But that will make sure it happens. Can you do your Sig voice again? What do you want me to say in the Sig voice? And I will do the Sig voice. Ran out of the other subscriptions already for the day. Might as well hang out here. Nice. Are there more major cities, kingdoms in the world? You just focus on. Oh, there's a lot. They're outside of this right now. We're only on the third session. Please tell me I'm not tripping. How long has TBR been renamed? Like a week. I love you, Jake. I love you too. Do you only do fantasy scenarios, or do you ever do sci-fi campaigns? This is the only campaign I've ever personally run. But sci-fi is part of it, because one of our characters is a time traveler, you know? It's just often in the, you know... It's not deep medieval times. Like, the professor actually has a flintlock pistol right now, and that's kind of the extent of, like, the mechanized stuff. Besides, there's a race of people called the automatons, which are what they are. They're robots. They diversified like legit gents. That's right. Sell me something. Okay, let me look at the inventory. I will actually do this. That's fun. So we have in Sig Shop. Let me see what's something fun. Okay, this is something I tried to sell them early on, even though they didn't have enough gold for it. I just thought it was fun. So you walk into Sig's shop. There's a bunch of shit all over the place. It's really disheveled. Looks like a hardware store on the inside. But instead of just hardware, it has no shelves, really. It's just kind of piles of stuff with, sometimes there's a table and it'll have something on it, stuff hanging on walls. There's no real organizational structure. It's just kind of Sig's. It almost looks like a mix between an antique shop, an apothecary, and a hardware store. So you walk in, Sig's behind the thing, and he immediately sees you, and he goes, "Hello!" And you walk over, and before you can get any words out of your mouth, you're here for something. You're here for some potions of healing. But before you can get any words out of your mouth, you start to talk. He goes, "You want to see something cool?" And you go to say no, you're here for other things. But before you can do that, he disappears out of sight below the kind of bench that he's in front of. He dips his head under, and the counter he's in front of, I guess. And you hear banging around, ting, 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 on stuff. And then he pulls out a little rod about this long. And it's got 2 horses on the end of it. Little ivory sort of and steel rod. And he goes, "Check this out!" And he clicks it. And then he lets go of it, and it just sits there in the air, wherever it's at. And he goes, "Try to pull it if you can." And then you pull on it, you can't move it. It's an immovable rod. And then he does all sorts of different kinds of ways to do it. And he goes, "This is cool because if the floor falls away, I can just hold on to this forever and I'll be fine." At which point, most of you would probably think, well, that's ridiculous. You can't hold on to a thing forever. But Sig is not a man to be trifled with. He also has all sorts of different stuff. He has like a little pixie, Ting Ting, that lives in a cage with him. He kind of keeps him on the belt. And they tried to buy Ting Ting once, and Ting Ting was offended. Who uses only like Tinkerbell-esque, just gesticulation to communicate. Was offended at the for the characters trying to buy her at a lower price. He's got portable hole, chime of opening. He's got a folding boat. He also has, I have a table on here for if they want to sell items, depending on the type of item. I roll on this to decide what percentage of this they get. So, whether it's low end or high end pricing for it. That's a lot of fun. Fuck Ting Ting. A player in my group keeps trying to use an illuminating binding spell, forgot the name, to try and see all invisible things in a room rather than bind an invisible thing. Do I beat her with my shoes? An illuminating binding spell. I don't know what you're talking about. Try and see all invisible things in a room rather than bind. Well, she can't do it. You let her use the spell slot. Sounds like you're not allowing that. I love you too, Luis Cortez. Okay. So, let's see what happened after they did that. Oh, they got hired by a dwarf named Grum to escort them and some of the workers that worked. He runs a trade caravan. Escort them from the city of Gygax to Tin Top, which is like a 400-mile journey. So this is the city of Gygax again. This is 1 hex, and this little blue mark right here. This is Gygax, and this all the way. I'm doing it backwards. This blue mark right here is Tin Top. So they walked all the way up there, and they escorted Grum all the way up there. So there's Sam and Aaliyah, who are 2 workers, and then Seiko, who is also an Aarakocran. Like this guy, in case you forget what Aarakocrans are. But he was a red hawk instead of a snow owl. And then, of course, Grum, the leader. And that was a lot of fun. They spent a lot of time with those characters. And so they escorted them up, and through some boob trappery, some goblins end up stealing Sam and Aaliyah, and the players go after them. A log came down and smashed into the side of one of the carts, rendering it useless, and then in the confusion, Sam and Aaliyah were stolen. Pretty simple. And so they track down Sam and Aaliyah, And the captors end up being goblins who they fought, and they go to a tower. I did a reverse dungeon because they actually, have they even been in a real dungeon, like an underground dungeon? I don't think they have, and they're heading to one right now. And so next session I think is going to be our first ever dungeon, even though like the spiders were in caves, and they were underground, but it wasn't like a dungeon. Does that make sense? So this was actually a tower called the Dust Vault that was formerly made by dwarves. It was like a bank, and but as the Citadel, which is Gygax, grew, the bank was pointless because it was kind of out, and it was in between Tin Top and Gygax, and then Gygax grew. So it's an old tower, almost 1,000 years old, that's just not used anymore. But you know how dwarves are, that when dwarves make things, it stands forever. So the goblins had been using that as sort of a place to do this. They stole Sam and Aaliyah, apparently for some ritual that the players actually never found out about. And it's important to note that goblins aren't particularly religious, at least in this world. So it was a little odd, and I had mentioned that to them. So they go in and they fight some goblins. It was really cool. But when they got to the top, and actually I forgot because the player that one of the players whose mini I don't have on me, it's still downstairs, Kriega, he played with us for like I think 2 sessions, and his life got really busy, and so he had to bail out. So they would have had was he there? God, I can't remember if he was there for this. But so I don't know. But so they climb up to the top of the tower. At the end of the tower, basically, they fight some different hobgoblins. They fight some goblins, and they get taught how to dungeon crawl, which I found to be important. And they also get taught to, this session was all about like being in the wilderness, away from society. You can't go buy shit when you need it. You're out on your own. You're doing your own thing. And this was a dungeon, technically, although it went straight up. But also they were level 3 at this point, and it's kind of when you get your character archetypes. And while Alenia had always had this ability, she hadn't used it yet. And I probably should have brought them. They would have been much cooler. She has the ability to sprout angelic wings. They are ethereal, so you can actually pass your hand through them, but they work like wings. She can fly with them. And they're golden when they come out. And Kriega was not there. Good. She had this ability to use these wings, but she hadn't used them yet. And so I thought it would be an interesting opportunity to let her use the wings. We kind of talked about it outside of game, but she didn't know when it was coming. But by chance, she was the first one up out of this hatch that led to the top of the tower, which is open. And I had made sure that I had a bugbear up there. Again, I wanted to make the combat a little more interesting than here's some guys kill him. It was a bugbear, and a bugbear is like a goblin, but like covered in like hair, like orange hair, and he's big and burly. I got a Windows update thing. Pick a time, stupid. Pick a time. Pick a time. It's gonna be tomorrow at fucking 6 in the AM. Sorry, Windows is trying to make me stop streaming. Boom. Okay. There we go. Anyway, but I gave this bugbear one different thing. It had a mace. And when you hit things with that mace, it moves them 10 feet. Now, if it was... So for the bugbear, anytime he hit, it just moved them 10 feet. They were on top of this little tower. So it was interesting. They had to actually get closer to him than they would want to, which is what I wanted. I wanted to have a weird dynamic where they had to decide where they wanted to be after they figured it out. But she ran up immediately. Sam and Aaliyah are kind of hanging off the edge of this building, right? And so they want to try to save these two people. The cleric comes up first, Alenia, and luckily I hit, which he's actually hard to hit, but he hit. And she falls off the side of the tower, and the other players are like, oh, fuck. And so I end her turn, right? And just kind of, so I put her falling off of the tower. And so I end her turn, and at this point I think she understood what I was doing, trying to make a really cool moment. And so we all go around, and it's was it her turn again, or because Avelios actually has wings, so maybe it wasn't. Anyway, she pops her wings, and she flies back, and none of the other players knew, because we've been using this mini the whole time, right? But you can't see you can't see that there's a magnet back here, so none of them had any idea. So she clips the wings on, flies up. Everyone thinks it's super cool. They end up killing the bugbear. It's great. And yeah, so that's what happened. But I thought, okay, so you say Kriko was not there, but I'm pretty sure he took that mace. So that's why I think he was there, because I actually, full disclosure, intended it for the cleric, because I thought it would be interesting, because if the players crit while wielding that, it would move 10 feet, their target. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. And again, I'm a little foggy on the exact details, but I'm sure my players could tell you exactly what happened, because I'm thinking of all the different things. But it was a really fun fight. They ended up saving Sam and Aaliyah after they end up falling off, and Avelios actually grabs Aaliyah. Was it Aaliyah or Sam? One of them grabs them, and he rolls high enough to where he can't fly, but I allowed him to roll and take most of the impact of the fall, and he survived with like 1 or 2 hit points, and they saved their lives. So that was pretty cool. It was a good time. And I definitely remember the next thing. So that was their 3rd sesh or 4th or something. So I have more. Yeah, it's hard because he missed sessions. Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty sure he took that mace, though, because I thought it would be cool for you to have, but I'm pretty sure he's definitely got that mace because you didn't take it. Talking to Legend of Phoenix down in the comments. So I will take some questions if you guys are interested. Yeah, goblins in a dwarf vault is just so D&D, you know? Jake, you going to use any Dungeons and Dragons and Dragons? Dragons in Dungeons and Dragons? Or just like aliens in Skyline? Okay, I finally got what you're saying here. Yeah, there are dragons. There are 3 major dragons right now that they know of. There could be more, or maybe that's it. And they're actually being used in a military effort. But I will discuss that in a little bit. Spears are cooler, though. Yeah, you got a cool spear now. Is it a dick move to miss a lot of sessions? It is. Yeah, it's a huge dick move. Don't do that. If you agree on... Like, when we started this, I was like, okay, Sundays are the day, because it seems to be working for everybody. Hugo's girlfriend actually took it off from work all Sundays. So yeah, if you agree to that, if you agree to those parameters, then fucking you do the thing, man. It's uncool. It's super uncool. And if we agree to every week when you start the thing, you show up every week, right? We actually canceled once because he couldn't show up. And so I was like, well, fuck it. I guess we'll just wait. And then he canceled again, and so I talked to him, and then he ended up showing up I think he played in two sessions, and it was fun. It was a good time, and he's one of my older friends, but his life just was too busy for that shit. So he was like, "Yeah, it's fine if you want to just kill my character off." And instead of doing that, I thought, okay, well, go ahead and do your life things that are busy. And if you decide to come back, like next year sometime, that's absolutely fine. Your character's still alive. Because I actually have really cool plans for his character based on the bio he gave me. So I would like to use those. And I probably still will regardless. But still. We'd love to play with your group. Sounds like a ton of fun. And great axes are the best. They are the best. Is there going to be a video tomorrow? Or, yeah. What are you talking about? Why wouldn't there be a video tomorrow? It's Wednesday. Why ask me these questions? Any cultural inspirations for your world building? That's a good question. Yeah, I think so. Like the elves are very elvy in the way that like Lord of the Rings elves are. Hoity-toity is a good word or phrase to use for that. Goliaths are very sort of nomadic, kind of like Gauls, or even earlier the Britons. I can't remember some of the tribe names. Viking E, I guess, is a good one. There's also barbarians that are humans to the north on the Shattered Isles, which are just a bunch of islands, like an archipelago of islands where they're just that's how they live. Humans are very much, there's different places. Like Tin Top is sort of like a New York. Well, it's more like a Gotham City because that's where they're headed next, and I'll discuss it. But Gygax is more like, if we could achieve like an actual like a functional United Nations, that's how I perceived it to be. And I mean a physical United Nations, not the governing body UN. Dragons, I kind of took. They're just kind of dragony, you know, tyrannical in ways. The most interesting political structure is probably the Aarakocrans, which is kind of Velios's character arc thing. He is actually royalty. And in a little bit, I'll explain why. But some time passes, and his brother Caius actually takes over, and it's changes from a sort of a republic to an empire, which is interesting. That adds a lot of I don't know, interesting political dynamics that I don't know if a ton of DMs are interested in politics. So, thoughts on Dark Sun? One of my favorite official settings. This is from Swamp Ape. Thank you for the $5 super chat. And by the way, you can also check out the Streamlabs so that we get every cent. Dark Sun. I don't have any idea about Dark Sun at all. I'm sorry. It's I don't use any settings really in any of them. I know Sarah likes Dragonlance. It's a series of books she really enjoys. I do have some, like, I have Prince of the Apocalypse. I have Tales of the Yawning Portal, Storm King's Thunder, Horde of the Dragon Queen, and The Rise of Tiamat. So I mean, I have those right here. Those are actually hers technically. She is the one that bought them, but they're in here just in case I need any inspiration at any point. All that's Forgotten Realms. Yeah, I Streamlabs are fucking up. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't matter. I appreciate it either way. It's live your life, you know. I would argue that it's not as easy as just clicking the button that's right in front of you. So, but let's see. Does it work for me? Yeah, it works for me. So it is a functional link if you guys are interested in that. You don't have to, but it's just fun to make sure you absolutely get. What happens when you miss a session? Are they just carrying your unconscious ass around the entire adventure? That's depends on. There's shit on my phone. There's a dog hair. It depends on how your DM wants to deal with that, or the rest of your party, I guess. The way I deal with that is we can carry your ass around, but that means I'm responsible for your character, and I don't want to do that shit. So one day they woke up, and Kriega, the Goliath barbarian, was just gone. He was just gone, and I know where he went, and I know what's going on. But the players, the idea was actually he would be back, and I would just tell my player who was running that character what the fuck he was doing. And so at first it was going to be just lighthearted fun. He actually wrote a message in blood, and at first it was ominous, but they rolled perception and investigation, and it turned out that was just the only thing he could find to write with, because he wasn't a very bright character. So first it was fun. But the longer he's gone, the more ideas I have for what's going on. So it's interesting. Get to the Tin Top stories. Yeah. I was making sure people had Time. Anyway, so they get to Tin Top. Tin Top is like a again, it's like a Gotham City, sort of, where there's actually a vigilante called the Bird, not the Bat. I always end up saying the Bat on accident because fuck it, it's Batman. They got a map. Tin Top is a cultural hub outside of Gygax. Again, it's very mixed races. The banks are there. The big banks are there. The ones that aren't in Gygax, these are the second biggest banks, and that's in Tin Top. And so there's a lot of and it's islands. There's actually a map of it in the. I stole it, which is I strongly suggest DM steal all the time. I believe it's in the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide, where they have some maps. Yeah, they do. It's this one right here. I just changed this to Tin Top, and as you can see, it's a bunch of islands. But these are cross sections. I don't know how well that's showing up really. But there's city built all the way down, so they're actually raised up islands that there's a bunch of bridges on. And I had it all plotted out, so there's like all of those have actual, like, those buildings mean things. Like, not every single building is labeled. That'd be just tedious and pointless. They're not going to go into every single building. Like, some of these you can just go, that's apartments, your houses, whatever. But so they go there, and the point was they could hang out in Tin Top for a day or so. I think maybe it's 2 days. And there was a fighting pit at one point that they could do. But it was closed on the first day because I had it open on certain days, and when they arrived, it was closed on that day. And then they had to escort one of the carts in Grum's shipment straight to Tin Top. Oh, I actually missed the white pipe stuff, which is fun. Let's reverse a little bit. So before you get to Tin Top, which is all the way north, a halfway point between Gygax and Tin Top is the white pipe. It's on a road. It's just a nice inn for travelers of all sorts, sort of on a crossroads, and they were headed towards the white pipe. Well, it was a couple days' journey there after they had gotten out of the Goblin Tower, and they had heard something following them. Maybe not, anything severe, but before, the reason they got forced to go to the Goblin area, the Blackwood is what it's called, is a bridge was out, and it had claw marks in it, and it maybe looked intentional. They couldn't tell. Turns out what it was and what was following them was an owl bear. After, I set that seed, a session ago, and then, the next session, an owl bear was there. I was pretty happy with that. And they didn't actually catch on to the fact, at least not all of them, that it was the owl bear that caused that until a little bit after, because it had rope wrapped around its arm. But I mentioned it pretty fast, so I don't know if all of them noticed that I said that. But anyway, so this owlbear is chasing after them. Right now, they're a level where they could probably handle it, but it'd be a fight. It'd be a good fight. So they're starting to be chased by this owlbear, who actually can run faster with a dash than I had set the carts at. So I had them, because Sam and Aaliyah were incapacitated really from the goblin thing. They were tired and hurt, and one of them fell off a tower and had to be saved. They weren't up for working really. They weren't, because they were the ones holding the reins. So I had two of the characters hold the reins on the cart, the last cart, and actually it was the middle cart, and they had to roll animal handling to keep it going. And I improv this. I actually didn't plan it because I thought maybe they'd just fight the thing, but they wanted to book it, so that was fun. So I set up a chase scene, and they start chasing. And every round, it gets closer and closer. And Zudre and the professor, boop, are hanging off the back of this cart, and the owlbear is going to get close to them. So they climb around and whatever, and they end up crashing the cart, the middle cart. Kind of the way the road is beveled up, and there's ditches on either side, and then it's flat again. And it kind of goes up. So the cart fell off the side, and you know how carts are with their wooden wheels. It goes like this, and it got caught. The front wheel and the back wheel got caught. There was a tree in between them, so they had to get out of the cart, push it up onto the road, and keep going if they wanted to. And there were horses attached to the front. And they actually got it in time as this owlbear is bearing down on them. And by the way, an owlbear is an owl-faced bear. It's a cool thing. It doesn't fly or anything. So it's chasing after them, and they're freaking out. It's really fun. The players are like, "Oh fuck, no!" And so they kind of break through the woods, and they had rolled nature on this, and they know that owl bears are territorial, but they don't know where the territory of that owl bear ends. So they thought maybe once they got to the woods, that was their barrier. It wasn't their barrier. They kept chasing them after they got out of the woods. So there was like this hill, and after they crest this hill, they go down, and they can immediately see the White Pipe Inn, and they were racing down the hill towards it. Grum was in the first cart, the old dwarf. He was in the first cart, and he was already way ahead of everybody, but trying to slow down, but he's going down a hill at that point, so can't. And so Evelios has this really cool idea. I want to be bait. I'm going to fly up, I'm going to shoot an arrow at it, and then I'm going to like fly like perpendicular to the carts. And he does that, and he hits the owl bear and everything, and that's great. And it works, and turns out the territorial barrier I set for that owl bear was the top of those hills, by the way. But this was cooler because it would have caught the last cart before it got to that point, and they would have probably had to stop and help out. And it could have fucked up the carts. Actually, they saved all the carts, and they didn't lose any valuables, which is really cool. So Evelios does this thing, flies up, shoots the owlbear in the chest, and loses it in the woods. And so the owlbear is confused and just goes away, and he doesn't come back. And they go straight on to Tin Top from the White Pipe. The White Pipe is just like a little inn, and I explained it, and they had a good time there. I think they might have gotten drunk again. That's kind of their thing when they go to taverns, just like every D&D group. So we head up to Tin Top after a little bit. I don't think anything happens on the way. There may have been like a bandit situation or something, but I don't remember. You can refresh my memory if you'd like, people who are my players that know this information. So we get to the the old rotation town. Yeah. So get to Tin Top, big city, whatever. They hang out there for a little bit. I think they get some equipment. Which one of them got... It wasn't Evelios. One of them got a special order. It might have been actually the professor got a special vest or something made from there. Can't remember. One of them definitely... Was it the shield? No, I'm forgetting. Anyway, they shop for some shit. They got some cool stuff in the shops of another city, a major city, a port city. I make sure that port cities have like interesting things because that makes sense. They would. But they hung out at some inn in the middle of the night. I forget what it was called in Tin Top. It's written down in my paper, so if they ever visit Tin Top, I'll know. The next day, next morning, or next night, maybe it was that night, they transport this cart to the bank. And of course, they have to, make their way all the way from one side of the city to the other with the bank, or with a thing to the bank. And I kind of put some pressure on them, I guess. You have to take that thing over the city, and maybe someone will rob it. No one robbed it. They got to the bank, and the guards are there, and they go inside, and they shut the door behind them, and they hang out in the bank while this is getting unloaded. Turns out a bank robbery is happening. Of course a bank robbery is happening. I think they all knew a bank robbery was going to happen. And this is when we introduce one of my favorite bad guys. His name is Babbitt. He's basically like he's not a full-on the Joker. He just has puns, and he's not as formidable as the Joker. He's not as crazy as the Joker. But he did touch... one of the thugs used his name, Babbitt, and he killed that thug for it. He melted his face with acid. Then there's a really cool fight Babbitt opens a dimension door at one point. Well, it's more of a portal. It wasn't a dimension door because dimension door doesn't work that way. But, you know, it's magic. You can make it whatever you want. And so they're fighting Babbitt, and there's stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, smoke pops down, and Babbitt's escaping, right? Running away. And Grum, by the way, gets knocked out in that scenario, and Babbitt kind of takes him, boop, can't have that, and makes him evaporate. But not killed, specifically like teleported somewhere else. And so Grum is now a hostage probably somewhere. And so they have some fights. It's a good fight. It takes place in the bank lobby and kind of the back area. And smoke bombs come down, and then people start getting strung up by their legs with rope. And turns out the bird is there, and I didn't bring his mini. He has his own mini, and he just wants justice. Stay out of my way. And it was fun. So a Batman analog shows up, and they fight him for a little bit. Then they find out he's a good guy, whatever. And they all chase, even though Batman, the bird, says, "Don't follow me." He kind of stabilizes the portal with some gadget he has, and then he takes it off, and then the portal's going to shut, and all the players run through it right at the last second. They end up in a room of mirrors, which was a lot of fun to take care of. Every time they went to break a mirror or something, it ended up they almost hit one of their fellow players, or they did hit one of their fellow players. So they had to get through that with a series of perception checks and stuff, which was fun. And so they do. And then there's a warehouse fight where the bird is on their team, and he ends up giving the professor, specifically, who didn't want to kill anybody, he gives him some birdarangs, which are batarangs, and he gives him a cape, which was his original bird cape, his prototype, which lets him cast Featherfall once a day if he wants to, which basically, if you fall from a great height, you can cast Featherfall and you won't take any fall damage. And so that was the bird. It was fun. I'm the only one who likes the Trickster. I have shitty taste in comic book characters. No, the Trickster was kind of an inspiration there, too. You know what would be awesome? A campaign based in the Lego world. You can basically reference any pop culture you want to in character because Lego. I mean, you can do that. I guess you can also just do a campaign where you can, like, in now times, make it for some reason medieval in nature, which would be fine. If you want to do Lego, that's fine too. But the thing is, doing stuff in Lego makes you can break the world a lot if you can build anything with bricks and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people, by the way, do use Lego characters as their minis and stuff, so it would aesthetically look really fucking cool on table. So the professor is now Robin. Not exactly, but he does later on use his affiliation with the bird to intimidate some gangsters and stuff. He does it actually in that fight. Like, the bird is here, you should not get back up. And he doesn't. Very cool. So I like doing that. Like, as a DM, killing is not the only option. And still give them, even if they don't kill them, the XP for that shit. It's a good time. What else is going on? You guys just talking about, like, knives and shit? What the fuck? Garland? I don't... Oh, Jake is reading the chat. He'll realize we aren't paying attention. Fuck you. And, so what happens after that? We're getting you caught up. They do fight in an arena. I think an arena fight in any place where they can bet on stuff is always a lot of fun, and you should do it whenever you have an opportunity. To just once, I think, or maybe you could do it more than once, but like, definitely an arena fight is a cool thing for your characters. I made it sure that they couldn't die; they could fight whatever the fuck they wanted. They got to choose their fight. And each of them got to do like a one-on-one battle sort of thing, which I thought was just fun. So yeah, and you let them bet on that. What happened after that? That's important. Time for questions. If you want questions answered, I got you. Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum. They definitely got back to Gygax at some point. You're making friends. Tell them about odd debauchery. Okay. So in that arena fight, I let them introduce each other, basically, like arena fighters. Like, and standing in this corner, standing at 5 foot tall, with black skin and a murderous face, there's Zudre. Whatever. But when it was the professor's turn, the one that introduced was Elenia, the cleric, Sarah's character. And for some reason, I don't know why she said it, she introduced him like, and here is odd debauchery. She said it weird, and then it was just so funny. She didn't say those exact words. I can't remember the exact words she said, but she said the words odd debauchery, trying to explain the professor as a character, which is a very accurate 2-word summary of the professor. However, it turned into a name, and because I was so fucking tickled by it, the crowd starts chanting odd debauchery after he starts succeeding in the fight. And so now that's his nickname, and actually that affected the world later, which was really funny. So his nickname is Odd Debauchery, and he has 3 sidekicks known as the Debauched. So, would you recommend someone who never played D&D try for the first time? What would you recommend? Like someone that made a character and everything but never played yet. I would recommend you play. I said a man of odd debauchery. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just get the starter kit, man. The basic rules are online. You can absolutely get those. And, I don't know. It's not hard. I just literally gets a friend or two and you can play, and it's not daunting. It's super easy. Will his identity ever be revealed? Maybe. Yeah, though this chat is dope. Isn't odd debauchery just Rick? I guess. Daniel, what the fuck? Now I have to see pussy stank. Hey Jake, how about some more cat food? Eat a dick. Yeah, I'm not eating anything crazy for money tonight. Not happening. So after the odd debauchery thing, I made some money. Traveled all the way back to Gygax. I feel like there was something in between those things though, because they went the other way around. And I can't remember it. Sarah, help me out. Did you guys do anything after you left Tin Top before you got to Gygax? Why can I not remember? My what? Oh! Yeah, that's right. So my player, Zudre, Sarah's in the other room. My player, Zudre, she found a letter. She got a letter from Sig. Found a letter with her name on it, but it had like a encryption magic sort of on it. So anytime you looked at it, you couldn't focus on what it said. And so she was trying to find someone that could decode it. Maybe she heard the name Gregor. As she was looking for information, so they went to find a guy named Gregor. They find him, and shows up, and he's just this old guy that talks weird. He's like an old wizard, and he talks sort of in riddles, and he's able to decode some of it. And again, this is a physical prop I gave her. And oh yeah, this was a crazy. That's right, this was crazy. Well, how did I possibly forget this? Um, so I wanted to introduce the big bad, right? The big. Here's the enemy. Here's you know, your Darth Vader, if you will, for at least a little bit. Who knows what's going to happen? I do. But so Gregor was sort of a step towards that. He wants to travel back to a place called the Time Keep with the characters. So he gets on the caravan with them. The bridge is now fixed, so they go down instead of going through the Blackwood, which is where they came with the goblins and stuff. They go around. They end up at the White Pipe before they go around, and it's just empty. There's no people, and there's some blood around and stuff, and they don't notice anything. And then they hear a bang, and standing in front of them when they walk outside is the owl bear from before with an arrow stuck in its chest and the rope wrapped around its arm. And it attacks them, and they fight it, and they find out after they kill it, which is pretty easy because it was wounded, it was a zombie owl bear, actually. And it was rotting, and so that was interesting. And so they keep traveling. And they go to cross the bridge. Well, I guess it's not fixed. It was a temporary fix. Basically, there was a ferry, kind of like, so you could get a cart on, you could rope bridge across, and then send the ferry back. It was a manual ferry, like a little raft that you could put stuff on. And so they get to that point, and they're ferrying across, and then they see two men walking through the woods towards them. And, you know, they just are ferrying, and they see that. And every once in a while, they keep looking back. It just looks like two guys. And obviously, I think to you now, but I don't think to them at the time, unless they just weren't metagaming. They're zombies, and they walk out, and instead of fighting them, they all get across the ferry in time. It was another tense moment where they had to kind of do rolls against the clock, which I think is fun. And Velios just flew over, I think. But it would have been interesting to have two zombies on this side, along with like one or two of the characters, and then have everybody else over here trapped kind of by the water and having to ferry across. If a battle were to happen, I think that would have been fun. But they succeeded, so it didn't make them. Wasn't going to fudge a roll for them. So they fought a couple zombies. So they keep traveling, and they get to this place called Sky Point, which is it's in the same hex as Gygax, but it's getting really late, and they want to pull over. It's still a few miles to even get to Gygax, and they won't be able to get into the city at night with this because the visitor center is closed, blah, blah, blah. So they have to stay in this place called Sky Point. It's basically a place on a hill that used to be an old prison, but now it's just kind of used as like a rest area or waypoint for people that don't want to stay in the visitor center of Gygax, or people that like this situation where they can't make it into the city because it's late. They all rest, and after some time, there's guards, and they wake up in the morning, and did they wake up at night? I can't remember. Those three guards are impaled on posts outside, and they're like, "Fuck this, we gotta leave." So they go to leave, and they travel down the roads, and as they travel, there's thousands of zombies, like a horde, shambling towards them. So they go back, and they try to take another route. More zombies. Try to go back. More zombies. Basically, they're being surrounded by a huge horde of zombies, and Gregor's there with them, of course. And Gregor is scared and crying and apologizing this whole time, and so he seems to know what's going on, but they can't get anything out of him. They can't seem to roll high enough charisma rolls to get any information out of him. His save is the DC on that was pretty high, but so they go into Sky Point, and they hole up. They shut the door. They lock it. They actually knock out some stairs, which was really smart and helped them a lot. And they go to the top floor, and they bunker down, and they are getting attacked by zombies for a while, for hours, and they're freaking out. Avelios, Alex, the player that plays Avelios, was pacing back and forth, thinking they were fucked, thinking that there was a way out of this that they hadn't thought of, and they were gonna die if they didn't think of the thing he kind of described this to me later, like it should have been obvious, but like they weren't listening well, or and now they fucked themselves, because I had always said, and I tried to remind them that I will let you die, but I'm not going to try to kill you. So the implication is that like it's their fault, right? If they don't figure out how to not be surrounded in this scenario. But they did a lot of good work, because they were going to have to fight a lot more undead than they actually did, because they blocked, and I had to roll for it with my zombies, and I'm putting minis down all over this place I drew out just constantly as I'm describing the situation, and they're freaking out. It was really good. And so I rolled for the zombies to see how much destruction and stuff they were going to be able to do, and how many rounds it would take for them to at least get in. And then there was, of course, a couple ghouls that can climb, so the ghouls crashed through, and they were fighting that kind of shit. And so this is going on for a while, and it was very tense. And at a certain point, it all stops, and they see this guy off in the distance, glowing green and blue and like a flame. And he walks slowly through that. All the zombies just stop moving. All the undead, I should say, because they're not just zombies. He walks forward, and he's got like chains that are like animated chains on him with hooks on the end. And you can't really see his face, and he is clearly a necromancer. And Gregor looks at him. He's just this old man that's so worried. A little old wizardy sort, but not really a caster. More of a hermity sort of thinky magic guy rather than a use it fireball spell magic guy. And so he walks down. He starts crying and weeping. He apologizes on the way through. And they try to get information out of him, and all he says is the word Crosley over and over in his mind. I believe the professor uses an ability he has where he can touch a person and read their thoughts with a successful save. And Crosley was repeating in his head. Now they don't know that that's the guy's name, the man with hooks, or the man with chains, and but it could be. They don't know. And so he goes down there, and then the guy breaks Gregor's neck, walks away, and the zombies just start coming back at him, and then so they fight for a little bit, and they think they're gonna die, which is just great. And at a certain point, I just set a round limit. I didn't know whether or not they'd be alive or dead at that point, but I set a round limit. I was hoping they'd be alive, and they were. They see another light come from the same area that the necromancer had come from before, and but it was a different color. It was like a brighter, almost daylight light, and carving through these hordes of undead was Alenia's sort of dad, the fellow cleric that they had gone with before, Alexander. And so he saves their asses. He's a very high level cleric, and smashes through all these zombies and things, and uses like kill undead or whatever, I forget the smite, all of them. I mean, I didn't even make him roll for most of it. I rolled before I wrote the scene, I guess, to see how well he did. Knowing that he would succeed, just wondering how long it would take to get to them. But he rolled really well, so I just read it instead of making them fight while that was happening. And so he saves their butts, and then after a little bit, all the zombies sort of just fall over and die and shit. Or stop moving, or some of them walk away. And so that was like a really serious thing. So Gregor is laying down on the ground dead, and they have this high-level cleric. So the implication is maybe we can bring him back. So they race back to Gygax, and it's a few days before the Bountiful Day, which is the Thanksgiving Christmas thing. And also they have to get paid from Grum for the work, so they want to do all that. So, as they're they head back and they're worried about Gregor or whatever. Alexander takes the character Gregor to a place where he can try to revive the person. They're all worried about it, but in the interim, they get to explore the Aarakocra part of the city. Evelios gets some cool armor where he has a little gem where he can. It's called the Armor of Adaptation, where he has a little gem where he can click in a gem and it'll give him resistance against a certain type of damage. He has piercing, fire, and thunder damage, or lightning damage, I think, electricity. Could be cold damage. And I thought that was pretty cool. Looks really nice. And so they're there for a little bit. The Bountiful Day is in a couple days, and they aren't able to go help with the Gregor situation, so they have nothing to do. But Sig, hey guys, you want to do something cool for me? He asks. Jake, answer Alex. Alex, I apparently keep making a mistake of asking questions to start a long story. Yeah, fuck you, Alex. Should I join a drop-in campaign with complete strangers? Yes. Yep. Absolutely do it. Boop. That's my whole perspective. I'm glad that I stalled. Maybe if y'all stayed on topic, you motherfuckers. Yeah, stay on topic. You're cancer. So anyway. The story. Sig asks them, hey, I need this flail snail. A flail snail is a giant-ass snail with flails on its head, and it whacks people. I want this thing. I can teleport you a certain distance, but then you got to walk the rest of the way. They basically go east. There's some frog people. They sit down at a place called, after a while, they fight really easy. Some sea creatures, things like they're kind of like mer people. They're more like drowners from Witcher. And they fight a couple of those. It's easy. It's just simple. I just wanted to add some atmosphere. I didn't think it would be any sort of thing. Combat for atmosphere is fun, by the way. Like a 1-2 round combat, just so that you can kind of, let them know it's dangerous. That's always, not everything has to be this epic battle. And sometimes you don't even have to roll initiative. You can just role play it out and have them roll. So they get to this place. They smell some food. It's called Cosimo's Bistro. It's run by frogs and lizard people and amphibious people. People that actually don't have a society that's recognized within the Gygaxian city limits. But they are people nonetheless. And so I made little menus, actually, that they got to order off of, which was fun. Like actual physical props. And I think they have them in their player books. And so they go, and they leave that place, which is a fun role play session, and they go, and there's an elf hunter lady poaching or trying to poach a flail snail, and so I gave them, to kind of capture the flail snail, what I called catch-em spheres. They're Pokeballs. Sig made 2 balls. Basically, the size of Pokeballs are like little glass spheres that you throw something at it, gets trapped inside, basically a bag of holding inside of it, but it can only hold one thing. But it could be of any size. And that was the plan. I thought that would be fun. Like, flail snails are very Pokemon-looking animals, so I thought it would be interesting. So they go and they have to fight. What they have to do is they have to weaken the snail while also fighting the hunter, the poacher, to make sure that it doesn't kill the snail, because you need the snail alive. And for some reason, I could not roll to make this hunter leave after it's getting its ass kicked. So it's willing to stay there and fight to the death, because these snails, as they go along, not only are their shells extremely valuable, they're like 5,000 gold or something, which is a ton, but whenever they move, they leave behind, instead of slime, and they leave behind glass, which is super interesting and very valuable. So the players, after they succeeded, but I want to say it was Hugo, like, from point blank range, or maybe it was Avelios, broke one of the spheres just on the fucking shell of the thing, and they were able to mend that back together and catch the snail. And actually, they didn't kill the hunter or the poacher; they captured them alive and incapacitated them. And so they gathered some glass, which they later used to get some crafted stuff, which is pretty neat. For instance, Professor got glass knuckles, and and Avelius got snail rows, which are glass arrows that have like a little bludgeoning tip. They're harder to hit with, but they hit harder, so they're fun. And so they do that, and they drop the criminal off, the poacher off, at Cosimo's Bistro, and they discover that, and it's an elf, and they discover that the frog people eat elves, and it's actually not frowned upon if they're criminals. They can eat them, and so it was like a moral quandary, and I thought that was interesting. So they go back, and they get paid for all this shit, and they get the cool stuff. So, questions. Isn't the Iron Flask basically a Pokeball? Yeah, but it's not doesn't look like a Pokeball, and it's not called a Ketchum Sphere. That's way cooler. Any sirens in your campaign? Not yet. So how long do you think you're going to keep doing this tonight? A little bit. You brought the poacher all the way back to Gygax, that's right. But they were gonna eat they were definitely gonna eat the elf. Let's see, what else you got here? Also using Slavic folklore, Jake. That sounds awesome with drowners. Yeah, a little bit. I didn't use a ton of them. It's not just based in Slavic, but it is as well. The further away from the center of this map they get, the crazier it gets, and so you get into more of those monstery, like sea hags and shit like that. Hey, I helped you last night, Hunter. Nice. If you murder an elf, does it count as murder? Ouch. It's not cannibalism if they're criminals. It's also not cannibalism if it's not the same creature. Yeah. So you brought the hunter back to Gygax. That's right. But what I'm remembering now is when you brought them back to Gygax to be, taken for their crimes, trying to poach a creature. You mentioned, like, hey, is this a bad thing? And people knew about it, and it was shocking because that's just it's kind of a cultural thing that we accept that those people do, as long as they're criminals. That's how they govern their lands, so that's how it works. So probably to my favorite session is next. This was the session where not a single combat happened. And it was my favorite part. It was the Bountiful Day Feast. So they have a day or whatever to hang out in the city, and that's when they get their armor and stuff. That's when Avelios got his armor. They hang out, and it's just a good time. And in real life, I made fair food. We set up snacks and stuff on sticks and deep fried shit, and drinks, and it was really fun. And they go down, and I actually bought real life, like, those rocks that you can put in like a vase or something to make it decorative in your living room because you're a middle-aged person and you think that that's decorative. I got those for tokens, and so they got 10 tokens to start with, and they could bet them or win them in the games or whatever. And they played all sorts of games. Oh, shit, I can't even remember all the games they played, but stuff like. And there's also a flyer that I made. Let me see. I'm seeing my notes here. No, I can't actually. That's actually the day though that they grabbed a spider egg, a different looking spider egg from the that second session there with Dyson with the Ettercap, and that egg actually hatched, and now Hugo has a pet spider that he named Gregor, which was fun. He might have done that a little bit later after this happened, but so they go down and they play some games. They play stuff like Catch the Oiled Pig, which they just do some rolls for. They did a two-legged race with some characters they already knew and each other. There was an axe throwing competition. What else do we have? There were some games of chance. They played some card games. We actually handed out cards, like real-life cards. They played some dice games. And we did that for a while. It was a lot of fun. And they won a lot of money. And then at night, there was the unsanctioned games. And so they go to the beer tent. After they go to the prize place, which I had prizes, like you can get, like, you know, pink erasers and hats and stupid shit. But there was also some good actual items in there that they could have used. So they go to the beer tent, and they're starting to get drunk and stuff and hang out, and which is fun. Betting on gross liquids. It was so good. So they're in this beer tent, and there's some bets happening. And the first one is like, what's that called when you stick your hand out, and then you do the thing where it's a dagger in between your fingers, and you have to go faster. 5-finger something. Fillet, 5-finger fillet. So they play that. That's a lot of fun. They do progressively higher deck saves, and they bet on it. It's a good time. I think arm wrestling was a thing. But the most fun thing was there was some people they were drunk, and they were like, let's have a drinking contest. But it was like a disgusting liquids drinking contest, not just liquids contest. But Hugo's character, specifically, has a magic item called Ring of the Goat that he got from the farmer Ben all the way in Dyson after they saved the goats from the spiders. And the Ring of the Goat allows him to eat whatever he wants, and once he eats it, it will taste fine, and he will gain nourishment from it. However, before he eats it, it's the thing it is. Basically, it turns into nourishing food once you eat it magically. So, the first thing that came out was like a bucket of piss or something. And so his rolls, he had to make Constitution saves. And what he had to do was, a normal save for a person making a Constitution roll would be, say, 10 or whatever for drinking piss. Because he had the goat thing, it was 5. I halved his Constitution save because it's still gross to drink piss, even if it tastes good, right? Like, the thought of it is gross. So I had him still have to roll for Constitution to see if he could throw up. So people were, like, betting on him to fail or not fail, and including the players. And so he bets on piss, drinks it. Then he, at one point, there's embryonic fluid from a dragon. Drinks that. Definitely, I think there's frothy shit at one point. Everyone spits into a cup and he drinks it. And then at one point, all of those things are mixed together, stirred, and then he drinks that for the final one. And other people throw up watching him. But he doesn't. He got all the saves, and he got a fuck ton of money from that. I want to say he got like 600 or 700 gold from that shit. It was a lot. And it was really disgusting. What's up, boys? Oh, Danny, you've missed so much. Okay. All right, Daniel. So we won a lot of gold. So anyway, after the celebration, there's an unveiling of statues or whatever. All the great architects of all the cultures built statues, in like column statues around the thing, the council chambers, I guess, basically where they debate and keep laws and keep the peace. And it represents one of the great council members from a long time ago. And so they watch this thing, and then a light shines up in the air, and they're standing there. It's them, and then Alexander's standing in front of them, and they get a much closer seat than most people because he is an envoy to the council, and a light shines up top, and then it explodes. It's a big green ball, and it just devastates everything. It disintegrates everything in its path. And then 4 figures show up, and time freezes, and then they're inside of a golden orb of energy. And they see, it's 5 figures actually, 5 figures standing there as silhouettes, so they can't really make that out. And time stops, and they still see Alexander in front of them, and they see this green ball slowly moving towards them. And then, like this, they're standing in the middle of what seems to be a crater. And they look around, and they're standing on, like, the only undisturbed column of soil. And it's just, like, I don't know, 10, 15 feet in the air. It's kind of like a little mound of soil, and they're standing there. And they look around, and the soil is actually pretty, like, it's not fresh soil, like, not, like, just freshly dug. They're just standing. And so they look around, and they're all like, what the fuck? Because, I mean, this was all fun until this moment. And they stand there, and they look around, and they don't know what's up. So, Ivelios flies up, and he tries to look, and it's just devastation. The entirety of this inner circle area right here to about, like, just a little bit past the ends of these wedges here is totally destroyed. That's how big the crater is. And so they climb down out of the dirt and stuff, and I make them roll some perception checks and whatever, and it's different. There's something different going on. And they finally get up. They find the only person they can really think of looking for, because they know that Alexander was right in front of them when this happened, and is probably dead. They go to Sig, who is one of the only people who now owns Rugo's Potion Shop from before. And had been owning it for several sessions. So they walk up, and they find out through a series of conversations before I ended the session that they've been transported in time 5 years into the future, and everyone thought they were dead until this moment. And that is where I left them for the night. And it was really fucking cool. Jake saying, "Oh, Danny is going to be my new ringtone." All right. What's going on down here? Please verbally abuse us. No. You're just talking about the kinks, man. You're just talking about the kinks. All right, dog. Okay, I'm actually gonna leave that diary here because that was a lot to get through, and now I can kind of slowly catch everybody up. So I will take questions again if you do super chat, or if you do the Streamlabs. I will definitely answer them, even if it's something stupid that you guys are talking about instead of something fun that you're talking about. You bunch of stupid faces. You're stupid. No, I don't like you. That's not true. I like you a lot. So, let's see. Oh God, he's reading it. You want to know what happens next? Of course you want to know what happens next. But you gotta wait. Just like they had to wait. Talk about a plot twist. We ever have an outside guest like Logic to Poisoning the Well on a D&D video? Maybe. I don't know if Logic would be very interested in that. But Fane and Pat might be. What else you got for me, fam? What you got? What you got going on? Jake, I want to say thank you for D&D videos. Sorry for the sexual harassment. It's a wound that won't heal soon. You should get them to fight Jesus. And they think it's going to be a really difficult fight because he's a god. But he's just a guy and has 1 HP. That's boring. You should not DM. Every time I see the unpop comment, I think it's David, and I'm really confused. It really sucks not having anyone to play D&D with. This is the best I got. Go to our official Discord. Is the link in the description? That's a good question. Let's see. Yeah, the official Discord is down there. We have a tabletop section, and I bet you could probably find people that want to play with you. Alex is one of them. Alex Maldonado, right there. So check it out. Any more questions? You guys are fucking wow. No, I'm not gonna follow the no. Tips for monster inspiration. There you go, JP. You're my boy, JP. You're the best. So, monster, like if you want to make your own monsters, I suggest like, what do you want them to fight in your head? Like, what is interesting to you? Where are they at in the world? What would make sense? What wouldn't make sense? Which is also interesting because like why? Then there's a story about why that thing is there. Now, the Monster Manual has a ton of ideas. A ton. Most of my monster ideas that are... I don't know. Most of the things they fight that are my full ideas aren't monsters. They're NPCs, which is different. But I make my own stat blocks for them and everything. I think the best place for monster inspiration is looking up monster concept art on Google or something. Or Bing if you're one of those guys. But you type in monster concept art or, and a lot of artists are creative and you can kind of come up with, this is also like if you want to have inspiration for NPCs, look up photography from all over the world and see kind of what's going on, or concept art of D&D stuff. And it can kind of give you at least an outline of kind of the character, and you can make a backstory from there based on their appearance, if that makes sense. So that's my suggestion for how to do that. What else you got? How far would you go in a session? What do you mean? I don't know what that means. Like how far distance wise, as far as the players can get in that time. Yeah, IDM. Yeah, you should. What do you say to using Dwarf Fortress to generate a map and some history? That's fine. Do whatever works for you, man. How did you attain the map you use for your sessions? I made it on Don John, and then this is the one that's the thumbnail for this episode was actually made by, I believe, user Teonos on our Discord. He kind of just shaded over top of it and painted it a little bit, which I think looks cool. I always feel like there's two approaches to monsters. The Pokemon approach, which is combine already real animals, or the Digimon approach, which is to take an animal and attach a fuck ton of weapons to it. Okay. I like to play D&D. I'd like to play D&D. I'm a total noob. I'll probably look for a group on the weekend. If anyone will have me, hit me up. In the Discord username is Twix in there. Absolutely do that. I'm not a Bing guy. Don't fuck with me like that. Also, thank you. Rape or no? Oh, I see. How far would you go? No sex role playing in my shit. Go do that elsewhere. I'm not here for your sexual endeavors, and luckily, none of my players are fuckboys. Like what? Why would you? Like rape can happen, but not the players perpetuating rape. Does that make sense? I wouldn't allow it. I just wouldn't allow it. It's not a thing that enhances anyone's game experience. It's just stupid. And plus all of the literally I can't imagine any of my players siding with the person that decided to do that and then also not killing them. I'm just saying, if you want to rape someone, like, fuck off. Pretty much done with the party art. You ever killed a man with your bare hands? Ooh. D&D players don't have sex, guys. Come on. Hugo and I are playing with our girlfriends. How dare you? Watching your D&D stuff from Pseudo Sapien has revived my love for the game after like 10 stagnant years. You bastard, I love it, but fuck you. Well, I'm glad that you're getting reignited. That's what I want. That's the point. I'm trying to make a nerd army. Jake, what do you think about a monthly D&D game with fans as a patron tier? I would consider it, but there's so many people that would do that. I can't DM that many people. Also, I put so much effort into DMing. Like, here's my stack of DMing stuff. That's not it. That's not it. I actually have books over there too, and my printer, and then I have a bunch of stuff on my computer that I use as well. Too much for me. Too much work. I would love to if it wasn't so much work. Hi, Marcus. I had a player once that wanted to make extra money on the side, so she decided to sell her body in times when they were just back in the city. We never RP'd it, just skipped to her getting money. Why would a high-level adventurer be a prostitute? Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that would have to be super high. God, making people pay an exorbitant amount of money to spend time with me seems fucking dickish. I don't know. I had one horrible sesh, but you made me excited to try again. Awesome. Never played Neverwinter, but Sarah's played Neverwinter. How much money would it take to get a TBR poster? Like, how much money would it be for you to buy one? I don't know. We don't supply them, but maybe we could consider it. All this work, should we just put in a museum when you die? I tried to talk her out of it a lot. Yeah, I mean, I get that, like, that's a thing that maybe she wanted to do. I would just say that that's not a thing you can do. No one will hire you. Sorry. No one wants to fuck you. You are unfuckable. I'm totally fine with that. Like, there's just no place for it. Like, what's the fucking point? Make money elsewhere. Make money literally doing the thing you do all the time. I just wouldn't allow it. And I'd make it very unsuccessful, like a copper, if I was going to acquiesce to that. You get nothing. You get nothing. It's not fun for anybody else. You're not adding to the flavor of the world. You're just being a douchebag. Yeah, no. I'm good without that. She was a level 14 wizard. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Easy. The adventurer wears a cursed item of nymphomania or something. Just kidding. I'm not a huge fan of D&D, so I wrote my own engine, so to speak. It took nearly a year to iron it out fully. You can... Using the mechanics, it gives you... Unless you want to make your own fucking mechanics. That's fine. I can't understand why you wouldn't like either D&D 5e or Pathfinder, though, as far as the mechanics are concerned. I can't imagine what you want that doesn't offer. I don't see the issue of having sexual content, but it should never be the focus. Also, being a prostitute would not pay well compared to adventuring. Yeah, I mean, sexual things occur, but I'm not role-playing that shit out. It can occur, but yeah, no. Like in Critical Role, for instance, the characters, some of them are couples. It's implied that they fuck. Like, that's fine. But they don't role-play it out. They don't make roles for it. And they certainly aren't prostitutes, and there's no raping occurring. Like, no. Like, an evil character can try to rape, and the players can react to that. But what is the average level people achieve in tabletop? I don't know. It depends on where you start. I would say a successful campaign. It depends on where you want to end it, really. We're almost to level 5. They're almost to level 5. I think next session of the section after that, definitely they will be level 5. If I was that DM, I would give her an STD the first time she went to go make money. Fuck you, wizard whore. Yeah, she would definitely have an STD. That was one of the first things I thought of. It will be detrimental to your level 14 fucking wizard. You can make money on the side that will... Like, literally there are mechanics in the game for you to enchant things for money. I don't know. Usually in my game, when the sex scene would happen, it's implied fade to black happens. Yeah, that's kind of the point. If players are trying to rape, they're probably edgelords, and they're probably not going to be in my game for long because I'll kick them out. Cool ideas for player props. Yes. Let me think of what I got going on. So I actually have a whole thing down here. So for instance, how about this? I gave the last will and testament of Velios' father because there's a little sneak peek to next D&Diary. Yes. Here's a player prop. We'll walk in and give it to me then. There you go. Sweet.
Well, my journal is a prop. But...
Okay, well, here's a player prop. But Velios got a last will and testament, which I printed out and made. And then sometimes it's rolled up with this kind of twine stuff. It's all cheap. You can get it at Michael's or Walmart or something. While in Tintop, Alenia, the cleric, was promoted from her clerical role because she had leveled up and stuff. And in that, she got a pendant, and she actually made it in real life. And so it looks like that. This is and this costs like fucking, I don't know, $5 maybe to make. These two pieces were separate, and she made it. It's supposed to be simulate like a fire inside of a stone, and of course, in game, this does stuff, but it just looks cool. So she actually has it in real life. Also, she has a journal that she writes in character, and it says Alenia's journal, and then it says something down here, and that's her Lathandrian symbol, and she writes in it. In character. Hugo also has an in character journal, which I strongly suggest. I didn't make either of these things though. As for a DM making them, notes, maps. I'm trying to think of anything that's not on paper that I made them yet. I made a sealed envelope and I made a wax seal. I have a candle and I have stamps and I made a wax seal for it and stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's lots that you can do. Hugo actually made his wand like it's a physical prop that he has that he brings to the table. It's really fucking cool. I was considering making a gnome rogue. Too trolly? No, that's pretty standard. Rogues are really good for first-time players, by the way. Really fun. Just remember to hide and use your sneak attack as often as possible. That's your thing. What do you think about for a campaign that has no specific big bad, but instead has different people fighting for power that all the players decide who to ally with, if at all? That is exactly... I have a big bad and that. So... yes, I agree. How do you use magic items in your campaigns? Good question. Finally on topic for you. Good job, Angelo. The DM's guide has magic items that I have used. There are resources online that generate random magic items. There's items that I just come up with in a moment of inspiration. Like I know, for instance, that Sarah, who plays as Alenia, wanted to be able to use, like, her racial feat is she can use the wings, basically. But she can only use them for a minute, and that's once per long rest, which means 8 hours of rest before you can use it again. She wanted to use it more, so I gave her a spear that is called the Spear of the Radiant Soul, that while equipped or attuned to her, she can use her Radiant Soul stuff for 2 minutes at a time after a short rest, which means she can use it multiple times per day. Which is just much cooler. Plus, she had lost her spear, and it's just a cool spear. So stuff like that, where you just make up the properties of it to suit your characters and suit your players. I made up the Armor of Adaptation because I didn't want to give him more AC, because it's not fun if you're not getting hit. Like, a player might think it's fun to never, ever, ever get hit, but it adds some drama to the thing if you can't actually get hit. if you can actually get hit. But he had resistance against piercing, fire, and stuff. He got to choose which gems. The professor has psychic paper, which obviously was inspired by Doctor Who, but he got that. And it gives him once a day. It gives him advantage on a charisma check if he wants to persuade someone, intimidate, or just lie. Some way of lie. Trying to think of what I gave. I made up the demon dagger, which is probably variants of this all over the place. But I like the idea of weapons that level up. And so the demon dagger. Zudre, Hugo's girlfriend's character, likes weapons. She just wants fucking cool weapons all the time. So I try to make sure that I give her weapons every once in a while. And this demon dagger is just a normal +1 weapon, right? A +1 weapon. You add 1 to your to hit and 1 to your damage. But it is helpful. It's cool. But also it has a curse on it. If she kills anything. If she makes the killing blow, she can hurt. But if she makes the killing blow with a weapon that isn't the demon dagger, she will take equivalent damage to herself. So she can actually die from this if she uses it wrong. And that's just while she's attuned to it, and it is cursed. So she is attuned to it until she gets the curse broken. If that's the thing she wants to do. But she's logging kills on it, and now I'm not going to tell you what these things do. Because she doesn't know yet, but she every kill she gets with it, right now she has 3 kills logged with it since she got it, which is actually pretty good. It will level up with her at certain milestones of kills, and I think that's fucking cool. I think that's rad, and it has some properties that weren't written on the card that are fun. If she makes a kill with it, it teleports back into her hand if she had thrown it. But it doesn't teleport back into her hand if she doesn't make the kill with it. What else? What else we got? JP Barnes, is that Sarah talking in the background? Can I pay her to make my party miniatures? Yes! I wasn't going to pimp her shit, but yes. You absolutely can. I will just put her email in the chat, and then you can do that. And if you're watching this later, it's legendoffphoenix@gmail.com. LEGND, the second E in legend is gone. OFPHOENIX@gmail.com. She actually does do commissions. She does art commissions too. And in a second, I'll actually show you some of the art if you want, because she actually has better art representations of the characters, and I want to make sure you saw those. But she does commissions, and so yes, she does do custom minis. If you are interested in custom miniatures like this, this was a Kenku, but she made it an owl. This isn't actually finished yet. We just got the bases for them. This is close to finish. Of course, she bored a hole in the back of this. It has a magnet and has wings on it and stuff. I'm not going to do that. You emailed me.
No, it's not the right one.
Jesus Christ. This is not going to work well with those lights.
Okay, I can email it.
So yeah, you should email this. Here's a sneak peek. Yeah, this is going to be low quality, but these are the characters. But yeah, so yeah, email that to me. I don't know why you keep popping in like that. Just email. But yeah, so there's her. Here is her email there, and you can see that's pretty cool art. But I'll show this in a second. I've joined the Discord. Maybe I can make friends. Put your hand in frame to prove it. Oh, map is the back. No, okay. Juan, do you mean sonic screwdriver? I maybe do. It has some similar qualities, but it's also his magical focus. He does do spells with it. Oh my god, that's YouTube's Kappa. Nice. Let me see. Have you ever watched Tabletop with Will Wheaton? I would absolutely love to watch D&D sessions here on YouTube with somebody who isn't Will Wheaton. Yeah, I'd like to, but right now it's a thing that isn't work for us, because Hugo is also involved in it. But at a certain point, We might, if the other players want to do that. I think you guys would really enjoy them. But they run for a lot longer than anybody else plays. We play for about 8 hours, and I don't have anyone to sit there for 8 hours and produce for us. So that would be on us. And right now it's not work. It's fun. So I don't know. We'll see. Da, 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 da. What other questions do you have? Yokoing the fuck out of the stream. Yeah, you are. What? Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Sent to email. Okay. So I will get this email with all this cool art and stuff. Done art, it's called. I gotta save it. So yeah, I'll get you some sneak peekage. Actually, that's just full peekage. Level. Okay. So here it comes. Add. Just an image. We're gonna add an image. And we're gonna browse. Don't you guys love waiting for this? This is probably your favorite thing that you've done in a long time. Let me. So again, Sarah drew this. I'll take credit for the inspiration for a lot of it, but it's not quite the aspect ratio of my screen, but you can get the gist. On the from left to right, so you can get a full view. That is Zudre. That is Hugo's girlfriend's character. She's a drow elf, of course. There's her demon dagger. That's just really fucking cool. And again, commissions are open. She will do your party art if you want that to happen. This is Avelios here to the right of her. He has his Armor of Adaptation on there, his bow, his Aarakocra bow. The professor's to the right of that with his bird cape and stuff. And then Alenia to the right with her brand new spear, which is rad, and her bag of holding. Got the medallion and everything. So yeah, that is that. That is amazing. And she does commissions? Yeah, so she does do commissions. Ask her about pricing. This turned into a shill. I can't believe that you got me to shill your shit, lady. But there it is. So I'll leave that up for a little bit. Because it is cool. Definitely, just if you're interested, just email her. Again, it's legendofphoenix@gmail.com. And then I didn't want to shill. I just wanted them to see. I know. I know you weren't trying to shill. It just turned into it because now they're asking for it. So there's demand. So yeah. Also, there are uncolored versions and stuff. So the price drops if you want something that isn't fully colored, or a bust instead of a full body, stuff like that. There are ways, like you can get pretty cheap single character stuff. You can get pretty expensive full ones with full backgrounds. Like she just did a Curse of Strahd one with a full party Strahd, and then two of the characters from the Curse of Strahd with like a castle in the background. It was all nightmare-y, and it was fucking cool. So yeah, she does all sorts of that kind of stuff, and she really likes to specialize in this D&D sort of art style. Of course, she does the custom minis as well. And if you want, I will paint one of like a shitty mini, one that's not a character mini. If you get like a horde of like skeletons or something, I can paint a little bit. I'll paint one of them, and I'll tell you which one I painted personally, if you want that. There you go. So, how much for Rule 34? However long it takes you to learn yourself. That really is a sonic screwdriver. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Also, she has plate armor, and Alenia has a 21 AC. We'll see how long that lasts. Matt Smith is gonna sue. You just put out a rough live stream of it. None of us would complain. I know. Also, it's in my basement, and the outlet situation as far as the streaming stuff and just the technology that goes into doing that and monitoring it and all that shit. I wouldn't want to put it out there if it wasn't quality, I guess. That's a lot coming from me, right? So, is the lady with the help? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Last call for questions. I need a commission of Hugo and Jake's characters making out. She'd probably do that, but I don't have a character, so it'd just be the professor making out with me in real life. What do you want for Christmas, Jake? Something from your heart. Send it to the P.O. box. It wouldn't be D&D if it wasn't in a basement. I tend to agree with that. Yeah, I'm in with that. Okay, so 2 more minutes, and then I'm done for the night for this. But it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody that did dropped a tip. I appreciate it more if you drop another one. Helps me pay the bills. For real, it's really super helpful. Where's my wife, Jake? She left you. I don't know that to be true. I'm just saying. We don't have basements in Texas. That's probably good. It's probably good. Don't wanna get hurricaned if you live in Houston, right? I'll send you a heart. All right, you can try to send me a heart. All right. Sounds like you're good. Sounds like you're good to go. So again, if you'd like to, please subscribe. If you're not subscribed, I don't know how you're here, but make sure to definitely check out all the other shit on here. I have a full series I do on D&D. If you're not aware, what's good class for a new D&D player? I have a whole video on that. So go look. It's probably the one where we roll a character. It's the one where we roll a character. Should you kill yourself? No, you shouldn't. Life is pain. Do you ever have to work to keep the party in the game? No. They're fantastic players. They do a good job. Can I borrow some money so I can tip you? Someone else can borrow you money. Yeah, fighters and all sorts. There's all sorts of non-magical stuff. Jake, are you going to take a snake break by the lake? That's just depressing on your behalf, I think. I think that's more of an indictment on the person you are than anything else. So here's that art. If you want to get some commissions. Legend of Phoenix at Gmail. Second E in legend is not there. It's legend of Phoenix at gmail.com. And she has pricing info there, so you can check that out. She's very talented, as you can see, from our really cool bird person, a really cool dark-skinned person. We're multicultural. And then we have the Doctor Who person and the ginger. So we've got all our bases covered. Yep, pretty sure we have all our bases covered. So you can't tell us that we're bad people. But anyways, I love you guys, and I'll be streaming more this week. So yeah, let's hang out then, huh? Let's just hang out. All right, good night, guys.